I don't need that on. I'll have to edit that out. Yeah, I just want to tell you guys a story about a murderer that escaped from Mille County Jail in Milaca, Minnesota. This was 1978, 79, 1980. I could be wrong on some details, but you can look it all up. It's got to be public information. But from what I understand, he killed his wife and her boyfriend. Well, he burnt them up in a cabin. I ain't sure if he owned the cabin or his wife's boyfriend owned the cabin, but I'm not even sure where that was. I'm not sure if it was in Mille County or... I think it was. But anyways, yeah, if I remember the story correctly, he went up there and she was there with her boyfriend, and he tied him to a couple kitchen chairs. If I heard the story right, I was a kid, so. But he tied him to a couple chairs in front of the front door to the cabin, and then he poured gas or diesel on the walls in the cabin, and he lit it on fire and watched them die outside the door. He stood outside the cabin and watched them burn to death. So pretty ferocious fella, you know, do something like that. But it was like in June, I believe. It was a very beautiful morning out. My mom was making oatmeal in the kitchen. My sisters and dad, all of us was kind of sitting in the kitchen at the table. That's kind of what we did, you know, and visit in the morning while we're getting ready to eat. And all of a sudden we heard a helicopter fly over, pretty low. Dad said, that must be the boys up in Camp Ripley or something like that. And like a minute later, we heard it again, another one. And we heard a lot of helicopters out there. We lived on a farm kind of in between Onamia and Mille. I think we had an Onamia address. But, so we went outside and looked, and there's helicopters all over out there. There's, you know, on our gravel road out in front of our house, there's Mille County sheriffs and state troopers, and even Onamia cop was up there. One of the city police cars from Mille was there. I mean, there was a lot of police activity out there. Helicopters circling all around our place, and we seen one starting to land in our cornfield. It was June, so our corn was probably, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 inches high there. And or the end of June. And right when we seen that helicopter land, and my dad was kind of pissed. He's like, oh, they're going to ruin the damn corn. Well, at that time, Tom Bozer was his name, a deputy sheriff from Mille. I believe it was Tom Bozer. Pulled into our driveway and told us, yeah, we got a escaped convict, stole a car in Mille, and he crashed up by, well, you guys would probably know as Chico's. It was called the Rustic Inn then. It was a fancy little supper club. It's called Chico's now. I think it's still Chico's. And then there was another little rough bar right in the corner there. That was called Twin Pines something or other. I'm sure if somebody sees this video from even the city people, they all went up 169 up to Mille Lake from the cities every weekend, so somebody will remember what that place was called, Twin Pines something or other. But anyways, and you know, Tom Bozer was like, yeah, we don't know, but he goes, we're going to use your field for a command post. Dad's like, well, kind of worried about the corn, and he's like, well, we'll try to just keep the helicopter landing in, you know, the same spot so we don't do a lot of damage. And Dad was like, okay. So then all morning they were sitting out there. It's like 3/4 of a mile to the woods. All day they sat there with their shotguns, half a mile away from the woods, wide open country. And I was like, oh my God, they're not even, what are they gonna, you know, I knew a lot about guns, so I was like, what are they gonna reach with their 12-gauge shotguns sitting on the hood of their car with their binoculars, you know? But Police got their way of doing things, I guess. But and there was a lot of activity around there all morning. And about noon, Tom Bozer come back in. He goes, "Yeah, we're evacuating the whole area. Everybody's got to leave, you know." Dad told him, "Well, I ain't leaving. You know, we had cows." He's like, "I got to be here to take care of my cows." And so Mom loaded us all up, and we went into Milaca to my grandma's. You know, we didn't have cell phones or nothing back then. But we went to my grandma's and was walking in. She's in a panic. "Oh, some convict stole my neighbor's car this morning," you know. Then said, "Yeah, he drove it up to our place and wrecked out and run into the woods," you know. So then we sat there most of the day. We was watching the news. It was a big thing, you know. All the news, they were all up there covering it. And, you know, it showed our farm on there and everything. WCCO, CBS, you know, NBC, all of them was up there. You know, it was crazy. And then we've seen they had set up, I don't know, a place at the Twin Pines there. You could go sit there and you can get updates. So they had a sheriff sitting there with everybody, all our neighbors, you know, was all there. So Mom decided, let's go up there, you know, at least then we know what's going on and this and that. And then, so we drove up there, ain't that far, I guess, 20 miles from Milaca, I guess. So we were sitting up there, and, you know, by the cop, and then we hear this report on the police radio. Oh, there's a man walking in the woods. He's got a gun with a black dog. And I was like, "Oh, that's my gun. That's my dog, you know, my dad and my dog." Dad went out in the woods looking for him with his rifle, and I don't know. And right after that, you know, then he went back to the barn. He didn't find them, but he went back to the barn and was getting ready to do afternoon chores. And then I think it was Eyewitness News or something, was out in our yard, you know, videoing in the front there. And Dad walked over to them, and I guess they panicked. They just took off, you know. They lit up out of that place and they left. And we're still up at Twin Pines there. And then we get another report that, you know, there's a man at that house. So then they thought, oh, it's Robert McCullough. And then they go back, oh, it's just Jerry, my dad, you know. And when the news come back, and they interviewed my dad, oh, geez, he loved that. He was on the news, you know. But it was funny when they, you know, when they were there, they aired that piece too before Dad went out there to talk to him. But, you know, they're videoing and talking, taking a picture of my little sister's tricycle. Like, everything was dropped right there, and we all had to run away, you know, and it was nothing like that, but we did have to leave. But so then we sat there all day and seen my dad on the news inside there quite a few different times. Everybody was interviewing him, you know, and oh, my dad was loving it. He loved the attention. But so then, I don't remember, it was 8, 9 o'clock. They didn't catch the guy. They told him, give everybody the okay to go home. And I was like, well, that is stupid. You know, if I'm a convict, I'm going to move at night, you know. That's when I would move. Not during the day. I'd lay low during daylight when all the police was there. And I'd move at night. Well, then, so we went home. Dad done all the milk and chores and everything himself, and we're in the house, and Dad's like, yeah, I don't know, I guess it's okay. They must figure he went somewhere else. And so then, but all night long, you know, there's either a state trooper would go down a gravel road or a deputy. There was nobody at their command post, but they'd drive through there about 100 miles an hour down that road. Like, oh, they don't want to find this guy, you know. And then, so in the morning, they all came back. We had the command post back in our cornfield, and Everybody's sitting on their squad cars with their shotguns, you know, a mile away from our field or our woods. And all of a sudden then we got, I think Tom Bozer again stopped and give us an update. And here he'd made it over to, it's a campground in between Milaca and Onamia, but here that McCullough had made it over there, and then he went east down that road just on the north side of the campground there and crossed the Rum River. And there was an old guy that lived right there. He had a little shack on the north side of that road, which was gravel at that time, and he used to walk to town with a bag. He was old. I mean, he was 70s, 80s. You know, he'd barely get around, but he used to walk all the way to Milaca picking up pop cans, trade them for, sell them for aluminum, and he'd buy like ham or bacon or whatever he needed in town. He'd walk all the way back home. I always thought it was crazy that old man would walk, God, over 20 miles, you know, to town and back, and he did it pretty much daily. But here, I can't remember if it was first night, maybe it was second night that he did this, but like 1 or 2 in the morning, he broke into, his name was Bob or Bill, I can't remember his last name. I know there was he may have been a Van Alst. I know Van Alst lived had a farm right across the road from where that Bill or Bob lived. His shack's completely gone now, but he broke into the house during the night and woke him up, made him make him breakfast. You know, he made him, I guess, bacon and eggs, and you know, he took all the money that Bob or Bill had. We'll call him Bill. He had give him like $7 and sent some food with him. You know, the old man didn't have no choice, you know. Then, yeah, I think that was the second night that happened, that he was loose right there. And then, we should get back to the beginning of it, how he got out, I guess, out of the jail. The jailer, somehow or another, had to unlock his cell, and ended up, he got overpowered like 5, 6, 7 in the morning. He got overpowered. The guy took all his keys, and McCullough took all of the jailer's keys and locked him in his cell, and then he had keys to get out of the jail, you know, but then he stole a car at my grandma's. And the jailer's name, his Lonnie Gardner or Palmer, it was Lonnie something or another was his name, and he was our neighbor. He only lived maybe a quarter of a mile from where that Robert McCullough put the car in the ditch. And that always seems peculiar to me, you know, it's weird. The jailer that let him out, and the guy goes right to his house damn near, you know, that always really surprised me. You know, I'm like, God, there almost seemed like something fishy or crooked there with that whole setup. But anyways, he broke into that Bill's house and ate some food. And then the next day, you know, same thing, you know, the third day, they're looking for the guy. And from where he was, it was only maybe a 2 square mile patch, you know, from where he broke in that old man's house, you know, from our place and up to his car. Well, from where he left the car to where he broke into that old man's house was maybe 3 miles, 4, probably 4 miles. So he didn't move around a lot, but then the third night we didn't hear nothing about him. But then there was, I think it was called Mikey's secondhand car lot, right up there on it was on a hill, right on 169. But Mikey, I can't remember the deal, but they happened to notice somebody was sleeping in one of their used cars out there. And it figures my camera's overheating. I got it plugged in, but it's like 9 degrees outside, so I got the heater on in here and got my phone plugged in, so it's overheating. So we're gonna have to do part 2, I guess. I'll try to pick it up tomorrow or the next day, and there's a lot more to the story, so hang in there and I'll get my camera cooled off and we'll do it again.